This week, we have the pleasure of having a group from Evergreen Commons with us. And first is Reverend Dr. Jill Versteeg. You may remember her from being here a couple of years ago. She's the president and CEO over at Evergreen. And she's an ordained RCA minister and has previously served as the RCA's chief advancement officer, the associate general secretary, and the chief operating officer. She's also been a teaching pastor in Des Moines. She's been a chaplain at Hope College, and she's now led Evergreen Commons for about 3 years. She is a familiar face to many of us. Also with us is Suzanne Scholes, the director of the Day Center at Evergreen. And if you've spent time at Evergreen, which I know a lot of you have, she's probably a familiar face as well. She's been at Evergreen for 18 and a half years, and she started as an intern in 2006. And I looked this up. That was probably when you were getting your master's in geriatrics and counseling. And after working as the activities coordinator, the resource coordinator, the program manager at Evergreen, she's been in her current position as Day Center director for 3 years. And we also have Walter. They brought their chief tech or finance, who's officer, who's working on any tech support too. So thank you so much for being here on a Sunday morning. That's we appreciate it. So.
And it is a joy to be with you this morning. My name is Jill Versteeg, and I am so happy to be among so many familiar faces. Dr. Brugink was my theology professor at Western Theological Seminary. And Ron and Sunny Boovy are in the back row, and Karen Stam, like pickleball extraordinaire facilitator, an organist, and Uni DeWitt. They're in the orange, kind of I don't know if that's a Kansas City Chiefs sweater, and then Peg, and my dear friends, the Walwards, and everybody else whose names I don't yet know. I'm so happy to be here. David, our faithful volunteer. If you want a really, really good cup of coffee on a Monday morning at 480 State Street, David back there, everybody say hi to David. Hi, David. He will serve you a great cup of coffee. So super happy to be here. As Lori mentioned, I've been in my role at Evergreen Commons for almost 3 years this month, and I am incredibly grateful for the call in this season of my life. Truly, I believe, a God-ordained call in this season to be serving what I believe is one of Holland's best assets, Evergreen Commons, a place that we double down on inspiring older adults to live their fullest lives. And we believe that's rooted in theology, where Psalm 71, we are called to old age, and to be called into something means that we have the opportunity to follow Jesus into the abundant life until our dying breath. And so that's what we're about at Evergreen. 3 pillars, and then I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Suzanne. 3 pillars at Evergreen Commons: community. We believe that we live longer when we are orbiting around people. And so we often say, get in the mix, take a next faithful step, come be a part of a community of belonging and growing. The second piece would really be physical wellness. So we are striving to, whether it be chronic disease, mitigation, prevention, movement, seeing more Thanksgivings, all the things. We are focused on physical wellness from head to toe. And then the third piece, and then I'll pass the baton, is care and support. So we really strive to empower each one of our older adults to find their path to flourishing in an ever-changing world. And finding their path to flourishing often means we wrap our arms around every one of our members to help them navigate what their next faithful step is. So care and support is kind of the focus of our next 45 minutes. We're going to leave space for some Q&A. Want to say hello to the people on Zoom. Steve Orlow, I'm not sure where to look, but hello, all the people on Zoom. We're so glad you've joined us as well. So Suzanne, take us.
All right. So hi, everyone. I just have to say, Lori, you might know my background better than I do. So thank you. You reminded me a lot of things I've done. Yeah. And I have been at Evergreen a very long time. It feels like, I think Uni can vouch for me because she might have been volunteering that whole time. Okay, so I beat you by a year. Okay, so today we're going to talk about aging in place. So like Jill said, that third pillar of Evergreen, that's care and support. It's the one that we don't think about the most as we plan for aging and retirement because it's not the most fancy part of what happens when you age. But one of the most important things to do is make sure that you're prepared by just starting to think about what your plan is as you tick on. And now as life expectancy is well past 80 and tracking higher, we want to make sure that everybody has the support they need. We were going to do a dry run of this presentation in January, and then the weather kind of hit us. So you're going to get the first round, which has a lot of words up here, but I'm just going to breeze over some of them. But we want to introduce the idea of aging reality. So about 95% of adults over 60 have at least one chronic condition, and nearly 80% have two or more. And those aren't fun things to think about, but chronic conditions such as cognitive impairment or cardiovascular disease are very important to intervene as early as possible. The most detrimental condition is cardiovascular disease, which changes the way we function physically, emotionally, mentally. I mean, that's the biggest impact to what we do in the day-to-day. So making sure that we have intervention for cardiovascular disease helps us when we think about our cognition, because vascular is blood flow, everything going through the body to the brain to make sure that it stays healthy. The number of people with Alzheimer's disease is expected to grow, with 1 in 3 older adults dying with a diagnosis, some sort of dementia. And a little background on dementia, there are 100 different kinds that are kind of evolving, and they're pinpointing more and more. So if we can make sure that we have an intervention or a plan in place, if that happens, and that 1 in 3 is usually over the age of 80, it's really good to be prepared. In 2022, more than 11 million caregivers of people with Alzheimer's disease or dementia provided an estimated 18 billion hours of care that was unpaid. So that's relational care of a family member, someone you know, a neighbor, a friend, a spouse, a parent. And people are not trained to be caregivers. They just find themselves in that role. So we want to make sure when the best time to think about aging in place, and it's always before something happens. So not to operate in triage mode or crisis mode, but to make sure that we can think ahead just to get at least an idea of where we want to go, which takes us to the next and most important question. What is your primary goal as you age? So not a lot of people ask themselves what their primary goal is if their aging doesn't go the way they want it to go. So we need to think about what we do at Evergreen is think about our wellness, physical wellness, and our community engagement, but sometimes neglect, like what am I going to do if things are not as independent as I want them to be as I age? So it's just important to start asking yourself that question. So we call this aging in place. I don't know that it's the best phrase to hear because you can interpret those words a little differently as you age, but the definition is the ability to live in one's chosen residence or community safely. So we want to make sure that it's very evident that you can choose where you want to be. It doesn't have to be at home. It doesn't have to be in assisted care. It's just where you want to be as independently and comfortably as you can, regardless of age or ability and income. There's the coffee shop. You can get that coffee on Monday morning. Yeah, I was going to say, he's going to see. I wondered if you were in the picture. So why it matters, why aging in place matters, is because everybody wants to be independent as they grow older and older. And for quality of life and reducing the expense of aging, because aging, it's like kids are expensive, getting older is expensive. This can help, if you have an aging in place plan, this can help you prepare for that expense. And there's no one size fits all approach. So everyone's plan is going to look a little different, and it's definitely going to have to adapt along the way because everybody has individualism and preferences that change. So the benefits: emotional well-being, financial savings, community connections. But the challenges that we have to consider and think about are the physical barriers to living where you want to be. So what are the opportunities for me to stay there and need physical help? What does the structure of my living environment look like? What are some health concerns if I were by myself or living on my own with my spouse as we age? So if something happened, if we got sick, what would we do? Social isolation. So when someone remains home, especially if they live in a rural area, they might become more isolated. And social isolation is something that we're very, very focused on because social isolation can take on the symptoms of depression and anxiety, which can take on the symptoms of cognitive impairment and dementia. And the more isolated you are, the worse it is for your physical health. And then unexpected circumstances. So what would you do if you were snowed in the winter or it was too hot in the summer? So you got to consider all of those things when you're thinking about where you want to age and how you're going to handle it. So after you ask yourself, what is my goal? What's my primary goal? You need to start thinking and planning on what you're going to do to achieve that goal. So, most of you, I assume, are retired. You still get homework and work as you retire because you have to problem solve through some of these things that you don't expect to happen. So, do I have a future plan for my spouse, my sibling, a friend? Do I see someone in my orbit that I could help make this plan to age in place with? What might you need help with? So thinking about shoveling or snow removal, or do I need help making sure my finances are taken care of, and who's going to take care of that? Or if I can't drive any longer, who is going to help me with transportation? And then considering what you can do for yourself. So a lot of people can maintain making their own decisions. I know some folks who are with a plan, they shovel that driveway for 15 minutes at age 88, go in, take 15 minutes off, go back out. So you just have to consider for your own individual being and household, what can you do that you can maintain? I don't know that shoveling is going to be it. And if you guys need tree removal or plumbing, unless you're a professional, I wouldn't do it, but okay. Who is my support system? So who will help me? Is that circuit of neighbors, friends, family, grandkids, children? And a lot of individuals choose to live independently without getting married or having children. So who is your circle that's going to help you? It's very important to think ahead for that. Where do I want to live? Where do I want to live if there was a need? So stage one, I want to stay here in this location, but then if something changes, what's the next step in that plan? Where do I want to go after that? And another good question to ask yourself is, where do I not want to go? So if you have to relocate out of state or out of your community because someone lives out of your local circuit, where do you want to go? And then how do I get around? This one's very personal to me. I think transportation is one of the largest barriers all over. I always joke, Walter and Jill can verify that I always joke it costs $1 million a ride to get anywhere because costs have gone up and accessibility has gone down. So it's good to start thinking about some of those solutions that you could have. So where to start? That's the biggest question after what are your goals? You kind of think it through. You got to know where to start. So there are lots of area agency on aging resources, and every region and county has an area agency on aging, and they have all of this information available to community members. But we're so lucky here in Holland because we have Evergreen Commons, and not just because I've worked there for 18 years, but because it's such a resource to everybody. And most people are familiar with Evergreen or have been there Some of the things you might not realize as you see things from an external perspective is that there's a lot of information that we house for community members, even if you're not a member. So we have a resource center, and we're actually doing an overhaul. I'm very excited about our resource center being expanded and digitized and going into the entire galaxy for people to find out what's happening and what's available to them here in Holland. So our resource center is located at our State Street campus, which is the triangle of State and Michigan. And it's open to the members of the community, the members of Evergreen Commons, Monday through Thursday. And we have resource coordinators that take approximately 1,700 inquiries each year, either by people coming in or over the phone, to tell them about community member or community resources available to them or to members. Lori actually reminded me today that I was a resource coordinator. I think that was way back in 2008. Seems like so long ago. But I do remember I was there when we first opened this resource center. It was kind of this new idea, and all of a sudden it just took off. And people were so grateful that they could come and stop in and just get answers about state and local resources, having information on low food cost options, in-home care providers, mental wellness opportunities, senior living communities, attorneys, caregiver options, transportation. We have Medicare counseling. I mean, you name it, we have it. And I would joke again that transportation costs $1 million a ride, but we do have one brochure for every one of those dollars. So about 1 million brochures. Yeah. We're going to try to take those online, so it'll be a little cleaner. So our resource office helps you take a deeper look at what support services are available. Support services are those that will help older adults or aging adults maintain independence, but most importantly with quality of life. Quantity of life sounds great, but quality of life is the most important thing. So we will help you find services such as home delivered meals, in-home care, or someone to come into the home and help manage your medications as medications change, as maybe you need a system to help you take meds, we can help you set up that. Personal emergency response buttons, so those life alert buttons that you can wear on your wrist and or on your necklace. We have care coordination and support. I'm going to talk about that for a second in a little bit. Adult day services, caregiver respite, caregiver support, and we have something called MOCA screenings. And that's kind of a starting point I'll talk about, but I want to talk about care coordination and support. Our resource office is staffed by care coordinators who are trained in the community resources, but also trained to help provide coordination of services and walk alongside you as you're trying to navigate all of those resources. So we could have someone meet with you who is a care coordinator, and they would sit down and help you walk through your plan of how to stay in your home or stay in your place of choice as you age, and then help you, as something changes, navigate what to do next. So all of those questions at the beginning are something our care coordinators would help you address. And then they can stay with you and be a resource as long as you need them. We're going to talk a little bit about adult day services and caregiver support and education. After we walk through some of the, a little deeper look into the options that are available through our resource center. So we have a list of housing options. We have a non-biased perspective on what housing looks like for older adults. So as we age, our housing needs change, preferences sometimes change. Finding the best type of housing makes a big difference. So whether that's finding services to come into your single-family residence where you've lived for the last 40 years, or helping you decide whether or not to move to an independent apartment in a smaller space, a condo perhaps, or looking at senior living communities. So any of those continuum of care residents where you can go in independently or transition through memory care and assisted care. And then looking at when it's the right time and the right decision to help maybe make a decision for a loved one to move into skilled care. And skilled care in our realm is what we think of as nursing home care. And oftentimes there are ways to put off nursing home or skilled care for as long as possible by coming up with a plan in advance and thinking about the costs and the options. And Holland is so rich with all of those options. And it is one of the number one places to retire around the country. And I think it is because of that focus in our community on how many options we have through our resources and the focus on aging. Housing opportunities and options continued. Choosing the right depends on factors. It depends on your health needs, your financial considerations, your personal preferences. But determining a level of care is required and whether housing options can meet that need. So if you are living with a difficulty with your physical wellness, with mobility and ambulation, you got to consider the safety of living at home or being at home without support system. So you want to consider all of that and then consider what the expense of that would be to look at another option. And at Evergreen, we always say last resort is to look at doing something you don't want to do. You don't have to face something and think, that's all I have, that's the only option. If you don't want to do it, there's usually a way to solve around that. Thinking about the type of environment and social opportunities, enhance quality of life. So what does it look like if you move to a senior living facility or community? And does that look appealing? And I always use this when I'm working. I say, I think the Golden Girls knew what they were doing. Like, you just find a house, it has lanai. Who doesn't want a lanai? And you're hanging out with your friends. So that was kind of ahead of its game in the 80s, thinking about a non-conventional way of living as you get older. And that's a plan that you could put in place early. You could also choose, ahead of time. I'm looking right now, I'm going to try to get in at farmstead. I think I have a few years before they'll accept me. I don't know, but just kind of knowing what you want your environment to look like. Understanding the costs associated with different housing, whether they fit your budget. And I would encourage you guys not to dream like, I'm going to go move to the Taj Mahal when I retire. I don't think that's going to fit many budgets, but if you want, we can help you. And then tour facilities, meet the staff, kind of get a feel of the culture and the areas that you're looking to explore. Those are very important thoughts to have ahead of time. So medical services. Medical services are something that have expanded throughout the last even 5 years since the pandemic. Providers can be more flexible. You can do in-office visits. Sometimes they'll come to your home. Sometimes we have a lunch and learn at Evergreen Commons, and it will be with a physician, and then they'll hang out with their patients afterward. There's lots of options. So if you guys know your physician is coming to Evergreen, just bring your paperwork. In-office pharmacists, you can usually consult with pharmacists and get medication delivery right to the home. That's very easy to set up these days. And then you could have specialty or home-based medical care. So in Holland, Corewell has really expanded their home-based primary care. I think Holland Hospital is starting to do it, and having people and professionals come into you rather than needing to go out when it's not easy to do. If transportation were a barrier, if mobility were a barrier, it's easier to have someone come to you. We also have this happen at the day center on 16th Street, where providers will come in to visit their person because they might live in an outlying area, and that happens to be the time they're in the community. So the greatest thing that's happening in aging in place systems throughout the community is that everything is becoming more accessible, and we're thinking more about maintaining dignity, quality of life, and specialized services without thinking about needing to go find them. And then transportation. We have the MAX transit system. If you're in Allegan County, we have interurban, all the way out to Georgetown. I live in Jamestown, and I see that Georgetown transportation is coming through and transporting over here to Holland, which is great for some individuals. So these are just a list of resources that used to be about 3. And I'm still complaining about not having, I think we should put Uber and Lyft up here. I'm still complaining about not having enough, but we're seeing more and more options for transportation as someone decides to give up driving, whether it's driving at night or driving all the time. So thinking about those options that might be available to you, especially here in Holland, is a little bit more promising. Legal and financial assistance. So we do have the need to start thinking about what you're going to do to have your medical services in place and who's going to be the right person to make those decisions for you. So that's usually thinking about a power of attorney or setting up advanced directives that would kind of be a plan in place initiated by you and agreed upon by your primary care provider and maybe an attorney to make sure that what you want to happen happens, as you can't make decisions or your health becomes impaired. Making sure that your estate and your will and any issues that might happen after you've left this world are in place can be assisted by an elder care law attorney. We have information and access to local and state assistance programs. So the My Choice Medicaid waiver, Medicare and Medicaid assistance. I mean, we help hundreds of individuals each year try to make sure that they have their Medicare, their Advantage plans, all of the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I don't know how far it goes these days. I think it's down to X, but making sure all of those plans are in place. And then the thing that happens is that we make a plan and then it changes the next year and then it changes again in 2 years. So these plans take a little work. So we have people who can help with that, finding food assistance. And then if someone were still needed a supportive income but couldn't work, SSI and disability. So our resource coordinators can help with these resources. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the opportunities at Evergreen Commons. And we have included just a snapshot of some of the things that we would do in that pillar of care and support that Jill talked about. However, I know that even as of last week, we've added more and more. So I'm going to remind me about Cancer Platform because I didn't get that in here. But we have an emphasis on making sure initially when someone needs a list of resources, we're also there to provide opportunity to help them realize and understand what their cognition is doing. So a MOCA screening is a cognitive screening. And if we want to help discern between normal aging and normal brain function or typical brain function as you age, and when it's time to maybe think about getting assistance for cognition or looking at whether or not there are changes that are happening that you can intervene with. So a MOCA screening is a Montreal cognitive assessment. It's created in Canada by some neurologists, and it can help detect early changes. It takes about a half an hour to do this screening, and it looks at a bunch of different areas of functioning in the brain. So all the different lobes and functional areas. And then we do simple tests and screening questions to kind of get a baseline for how your brain is functioning. This is something that neurologists would do in their office if they could take more time to do it. So we have visited with Holland Hospital Neurology so many times, and they're so grateful that we have the ability to perform a MOCA screening so that then their patient can bring it in. This MOCA screening has immediate results. It can indicate whether you're at within normal limits baseline, or if maybe there are some changes taking place, and then what to do with those changes and what resources you can seek. Sometimes it's just physical wellness, diet, and exercise. lifestyle changes, sometimes it's time to consult with neurology or a physician. So that is one thing that is kind of a starting point in thinking about a plan of care and aging in place. You kind of want to know if you're thinking about it for a loved one or a spouse or a parent, if you want to get an idea of where things, like what the baseline looks like before you start making your plan. The Day Center of Evergreen Commons. How many of you know about the Day Center of Evergreen Commons? Jill and Walter don't, but I'll tell them about it later. It's fine, they didn't. Okay, the Day Center we're right in the same neighborhood, just down the street, around the corner. The Day Center of Evergreen Commons is our second campus. We used to be housed, now, can you tell I'm getting excited? I'm gonna start rambling here. We used to be housed at State Street in what is now our fitness center. And we moved in 2012 for larger space and expanded opportunities. And the Day Center is designed to be a cost-effective alternative to having services come in the home or for someone to go out of the home. So it's this, I always tell people it's a very small-scaled version of everything we can do at State Street. We still have all of these opportunities for social engagement, physical wellness, and we provide that care and support. So we can invite people in to what the formal term is called Adult Day Health or Adult Day Services Center, where we have a nursing team who can assist with medications, health monitoring, making sure physical well-being is in place, in talking to the care partner, and then also helping people achieve their goals, often improving their quality of life and their functional ability. We have therapeutic activities, and that activity program looks a lot like you would see at Evergreen Commons. So we have classes that include art and music. We have exercise. We have Tai Chi. We have Bible study. We do a lot of cognitive games and socializing. So we're trying to think of all these dimensions of wellness that can be provided for someone who might need a little bit extra help staying at home, a little bit more guidance than they would at Evergreen Commons, and providing an opportunity for whomever they're living with to just have a little space and a little break from them. So respite is our other, and caregiver services is our other realm of the Day Center. We have specialty staff that are trained to provide very person-centered activity care plans. So we get to know each person coming in. We ask about their background, what their interests were, what they don't want to do. So aging in place means you get to make those choices and still have that plan. And then you get the support of Evergreen Commons to carry out that plan with you. We do have people who have come to the program and done a little bit of their post-physical therapy rehab exercises. Maybe they had a nursing home stay and they needed to rehab their strength. They needed to work through a medical circumstance and kind of get their endurance and their cognition back to a point where they could perform at home safely. And I've seen people come to the program, and then it's one of the greatest yet disappointing things when you get this character in there and he's like, I'm gonna quit coming because I got to do some more golfing. So that happens. That's one of the greatest things. And then we have caregivers who will have someone that they're caring for at home and just reach a point of burnout and stress, and they just can't do it anymore. But they're so worried about what it would look like to bring their spouse to the day center. And then oftentimes after a visit, an initial visit or a tour, that individual will come back and say, you know, I knew I should have been here this whole time. And it's like, okay, I know you, now you know, but they just can't get enough of us. So it's one of the great things. It's true. Usually Thursdays, right, Uni? Yeah, sure. Uni might be around on Thursdays. Yeah. Okay, good. And our caregiver support services, our comprehensive list of support services that we provide. We have support groups for individuals who are living with someone who needs physical help, individuals who are living with Parkinson's disease or cancer, and their care partners. We have a support group tailored toward those living with dementia and Alzheimer's type diseases. And we want to make sure that we're providing a gathering and an opportunity to meet and discuss those issues, just to form those peer connections so that you can bounce ideas off each other, care tips. You can have an outlet for an emotional, not grievance. I guess you can't file a grievance if you chose to marry someone, and then I might do that though. Somebody remind me, I can't file a grievance against my spouse. People come together and they meet and they form that connection, and they're able to kind of release that stress and unload that burden. And we're getting into a better rhythm of this with all of our different platforms, focusing on dementia support and Parkinson's disease support and cancer of any kind. And cancer is one of those umbrella terms like dementia. There are hundreds of kinds. So we're Evergreen starting to get into a rhythm of how we're going to start providing more comprehensive support in those areas. Oh, this is a busy slide. I apologize. But you can get this information right at State Street from our resource center. We have caregiver support workshops and caregiver education opportunities. So learning to be a caregiver, loving someone who has dementia, what it means to live with the loss of someone who has dementia. So that loss and that grief comes not when that person is gone, but kind of when you start to feel what it's like to live with someone who has cognitive impairment. That is the same for anybody who's living with a Parkinson's disease diagnosis or a cancer diagnosis. So those are not listed because they're so new to us, but we have all of these opportunities. And then stress busting. So how to deal with the stress that comes with the physical burden of caregiving, and what can you do to relieve that stress and keep yourself in a good place emotionally. We have some support groups listed for the caregivers on this list on the left, but all of this is available to anyone in the community through our website at evergreencommons.org. And this is an opportunity of a lifetime for all of you. Yeah, we're going to have an open house at the day center. So I'm really focused on the day center because it is that care and support. And we have that resource office as a bridge to what we're doing at 16th Street. And this is the time that we invite you in to see what we're doing inside the building, but also just meet the staff, meet our resource office staff, meet our care coordinators, and get to know what we're doing in that care and support pillar of Evergreen Commons. There's so much more. I could talk maybe till tomorrow morning. Yeah, don't you think? Wednesday at 3? No. Oh yeah, I could, because of all of the resources that we provide for Evergreen. Jill and Walter can attest with the physical wellness, which is a whole pillar we didn't even talk about. There are 6 million options. I'm sure it's 6 million. I was counting last night. And then with our community engagement and opportunities, we just want to get people over there just to see what's going on. So plenty of opportunities, lunch and learns, events that we invite you to. But right now, thinking about care and support in that pillar of Evergreen, we want to invite you to the Day Center Open House to get to know us a little bit more. And we want to invite you to ask any questions that you may have about some of those resources or the services that we provide. Yay. Eunice, can I talk about you a minute? Uni is our donut provider. So whenever we are trying to stay on top of our physical wellness, Uni comes in with donuts. But just like our State Street campus, we welcome the gift of volunteers. We welcome the support from volunteers. So that's one way too to get to know our programming and what we're doing in all of these aspects of Evergreen is through volunteership. And we often have volunteers who will know someone, and I think word of mouth for whatever we're doing with our resources, care coordination, and our support services. That's kind of their answers. Come and see what Evergreen can do to help you. Yeah. Good.
Kim, wait a second. We got our Zoom people. Okay.
I just reminding you were going to just talk about the cancer platform.
Yes. Can I ask one of you? Yeah, Walter will know a little bit more detail. Our cancer platform is housed within our physical wellness realm.
Great. No, and continuing on, really just launching in this year, and we're starting off with some support groups. So really surveying what our members need and building the program around what needs are really not being met currently in the community. So working with a few of the hematology centers and understanding kind of where people are, where the gaps are, and then we can build our program around it. So starting with the care and support, understanding from the support groups, and then we have our trainers, our fitness trainers going through certifications that are very specific to the disease programming. So really that's a pre-treatment, during treatment, and post-treatment plan, so that if someone has post-surgical, it's a very different fitness plan than it is pre-surgical. So working on really a couple different avenues to that, and that will continue to expand and grow over this next really 12 months. Thanks.
You did. I was going to say something about screening.
No, something I'll follow up with our fitness team on, who's doing the certifications, where we have one team member who's complete, and we have another team member who's started. So let me do a little follow up on that, and I'll follow up with you. You're gonna let us off this easy? There's a lot of information that just came at you. I think really from our standpoint, ask questions, that's what we're here for. We are a resource. It's a free community resource. So we just, we're here to answer, all that information came really fast and is really deep. But if anything hit you where you want to know more, just ask one of the three of us or follow up with our team.
I just want people to know that there's lots of slots over at Evergreen for working and helping and helping. And these people that are sitting in here, good case.
So we have, Evergreen, roughly we have around 5,000 members at our campus. We see between 700 and 900 check-ins a day. So a good number of people come through the building from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's 4 days a week, and then Friday till 5, and Saturdays half day. But we have around 50 full-time employees at Evergreen. So not very many to service 5,000. We couldn't do it without the hundreds of volunteers and the thankless hours or the appreciated hours that they just give to us. So yeah, really most of our programming is made possible by the generosity of our volunteers. So thank you.
And if you haven't been to Evergreen and you kind of want to take that first step, sounds like Mondays, Jill's sponsoring coffee with David. David will serve it. Yeah. But we would love to have you just pop in. I mean, just to find a familiar face, find any one of us, and we'll take that time. Because it can be a big step when you want to find some resources or take that first step in figuring out what to do and putting a plan in place, or just joining Evergreen if you haven't been there.
And our coffee shop is open to the public, so you don't need to be a member to come in. So coffee shop and dining services are open for anyone at any age. So yeah, we welcome you to come in. And then there's obviously tours and follow-ups and all kinds of information. So again, there's a lot. When people say, what happens at Evergreen? I really have to say it's a lot. I mean, if there's any affinity group that you're interested in, from music to knitting, to quilting, to singing,
belly dancing,
anything. Yeah.
I know,
the wood shop. I haven't found too many things that we don't have for people. Is fishing groups. I mean, any meaningful pursuit that you are interested in, I can guarantee there's someone else there who would partner with you and spend that time with you. So.
I know my insurance pays for basic membership, but I'm sure that doesn't cover the budget. How often do you have fundraisers? What are the other options you have for financing?
Okay. Correct. So our annual membership is $65 a year. And then there's add-ons for certain programs. So like our fitness program has an add-on, and then the wood shop and pickleball are additional add-ons. But you're correct. For the amount that our members contribute, it doesn't cover our budget. So we are actively engaging in fundraising opportunities through the year. Our big 2 times, we have a mid-year appeal, and then our year-end appeal are our 2 big ones. But we've been really trying to focus on, I'll say really initiative-focused fundraising. So we did kind of the Bikes, Beats, and Brews, where we went after the fitness equipment that was specific to that Parkinson's programming. So we found that there's been great success in identifying a specific purpose for the fundraising and then bringing folks around that to gather for that initiative. So yeah, have a few through the year, but made again, Evergreen is what it's $1 in $4 comes from the generosity of our members. So,
and in that care and support realm of Evergreen, we seek to find whatever financial assistance someone needs to make sure that they're not turned away for services. And our resource center in our hub is a free resource to the community. So even if it's just seeking information, we want to make sure that that's barrier free through that.
And we've never said no to anyone who's come to the door. So there's either a scholarship opportunity, a sponsorship opportunity, or working with their insurance companies to meet the need. So we've never turned anyone away from an opportunity to join.
Let me just add, thanks for that question. We really strive to keep our administrative costs low. So of our budget, only 12% really, right, Walter, is for kind of general administration. So every, the 34, the 1 in 4 that we get from, generosity of philanthropy, we really want that to go toward every one of our members. So we're really excited about that. And I will say too, that this is our 40th year. So 40 years ago, Evergreen was, birthed at, the old Holland Christian high school there. Some of you will remember that. And so this year we're excited about kind of planning some key events, one in June and then one in October that will really highlight, we'll celebrate the past well, and then we're going to look ahead with some real strategy for what the next 40 years are going to be at Evergreen. So very excited about that. I think we've said this at least 3 times, but a lot of information has come at you this morning. You can walk some of that information out the door. There are 4 pieces up here that I would love for each of you to take to kind of just let it percolate a bit. Walter mentioned it. Our coffee shop is open to the public. Come in, find one of us. We'd love to just sit down one-to-one and say, what is your next step? How can we come alongside you? There is no dumb question, and we truly love to do that work with our people. So, good question.
This is an unpaid ad because I had limited opportunity to work with Suzanne. I just want to commend you for all that you did, in spite of the fact that we did not stay with you long enough.
Hey.
But I also have not heard anything specific. If I missed it, please tell me, about people who would be willing to come in. And I've had so many people ask me, who's somebody that can help me with my paperwork? Mm-hmm. It might be taxes. It might be just paying bills. It might be often the woman whose husband used to take care of it. Is that a service? And if so, can you talk about that?
It would be right through our resource center, just kind of bringing that in, especially if it has to do with anything Medicare, anything Medicaid, maybe finding the right the expert to put you in touch with through our resource center to help with that paperwork. I would like to say that we know a lot of information, but we're not experts in everything. But we have those 7 million resources. See how it keeps going up the more I talk? 7 million resources. And we have these great connections and partnerships within the community that if we can't guide you in the right way to complete the right paperwork, we're going to strive to find a way to do that. I myself have sat down to do VA paperwork like I've never seen before. And what we want to make sure is that someone doesn't just give up and feel like it's impossible. So regardless of what that is, we're going to try to help find that solution.
Right.
Yes, Peg. What's your address? No, I know, I'm joking. We could. Our care coordinators, depending on the circumstance, do go off-site. Yes. Yeah.
And I think, as Suzanne said, the big thing is, we look at it from an unbiased perspective. So we don't have a dog in that fight. We want to make sure that you get the right service you need. So when we think about a service that goes beyond what we can support directly, the folks that we would refer to or introduce you to, we have a trust relationship that's built over the 40 years of working with, our care partners in the community. So we want to make sure that you're getting the right service. So we've kind of pre-vetted a lot of them in a way to make sure that knowing your circumstance, we can put you in touch with the person who can then support you the best.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, then thank you so much for being here. We just really appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thank you guys.